The massive alien ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came without warning, pushing through Earth's atmosphere like dark clouds blocking out the sun. In New York, Tokyo, London, and every major city across the globe, millions of people stopped to stare at the sky. Traffic halted. Phones came out to record the moment humanity finally met aliens. Sarah Chen, a street vendor in Shanghai, watched as her noodle customers abandoned their bowls to gawk at the sky. "This can't be good," she whispered to herself, noticing how the ships seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their surfaces were so black they looked like holes cut into the sky. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, Security Council members rushed to gather for an emergency meeting. They had barely taken their seats when every screen, phone, and computer across Earth began broadcasting the same message. The aliens didn't bother with greetings or introductions. "People of Earth," the message began in perfect English, though it played in every language simultaneously. "We are the Xerxian Empire. We control 70% of this galaxy. Your planet sits in unclaimed space that we now wish to add to our territory. You have 30 Earth days to surrender control of your world to the Empire. If you comply, you will be allowed to live as productive members of our society. If you refuse..." The message paused, and the ships above every major city released a blast of energy into the empty sky. The demonstrations lit up the atmosphere like artificial auroras. "You will face complete annihilation." Inside the UN building, General Michael Santos of Brazil slammed his fist on the table. "They don't even pretend to negotiate. This is not a diplomatic mission. It's an invasion with a countdown." The Chinese representative, Lai Wei, stayed calm, but his eyes showed anger. "Their ships cover our major cities. Our military satellites report at least 50 more vessels hiding behind the moon. They believe they have already won." In London, Prime Minister Eleanor Wright gathered her cabinet. The usual political arguments died as they watched live feeds of the alien ships. "They expect us to spend these 30 days fighting among ourselves," she said, arguing about whether to fight or surrender. "That's why they gave us time instead of attacking immediately." Back in New York, U.S. President James Chen joined the UN meeting through a secure video link from a bunker. His face appeared on the main screen, looking tired but determined. "Our first priority is to avoid panic. We need to keep our people calm while we..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "While we consider our options." The Russian president, speaking from Moscow, nodded in agreement. "Yes, we must appear to be carefully considering their generous offer." Something in his tone made the other leaders pay attention. "We should take full advantage of the time they have given us." Around the world, military bases went on high alert, but no one launched attacks at the alien ships. Police prepared for riots that didn't come. People were scared, but there was no mass panic. Instead, a strange calm settled over Earth's cities. People went home. They hugged their families. They watched the news. They waited. What the Xerxian Empire didn't understand was this: humanity's apparent calm wasn't surrender. Deep underground, in secret bunkers and hidden facilities, Earth's leaders were already putting a very different plan into action. The aliens thought they had given Earth 30 days to accept defeat. Instead, they had given humanity 30 days to prepare a surprise that would shock the entire galaxy. Above it all, the Empire's ships hung in the sky like patient vultures, waiting for what they thought would be an inevitable surrender. They had no idea that humans had a very different definition of the word inevitable. Dr. Emily Rodriguez walked through the underground facility beneath the Nevada desert, her footsteps echoing in the concrete hallway. As Earth's leading fusion scientist, she had been brought here immediately after the aliens arrived. The facility, once used for nuclear research, now had a different purpose. "How's the conversion coming along?" she asked Dr. Chen, her colleague who hadn't slept in 3 days. They stood in front of what used to be a fusion reactor. Now it looked different, more dangerous. "We're at 40% completion," he replied, his tired eyes focused on computer screens showing complex calculations. The real question is, will it work? Above ground, life seemed to continue normally. People went to work, children attended school, and stores remained open. The alien ships still hung in the sky like dark stars, watching everything. But beneath the surface, in similar facilities around the world, scientists worked day and night on Protocol Omega. In Moscow, Dr. Anatoly Petrov supervised the conversion of their largest fusion plant. His hand shook slightly as he made adjustments to the machinery. "We are not building weapons," he told his team. "We are building stars." The plan was both simple and insane. Convert Earth's fusion power plants into devices that could create miniature stars. If the aliens wouldn't let humanity live freely, then humanity would make sure they got nothing but ashes. In London, military commander Sarah Thompson coordinated with other defense forces worldwide. Their job wasn't to fight the aliens, it was to look busy enough to distract them. Military vehicles moved between bases. Planes took off and landed, all carefully planned to look like normal activity while hiding the real preparations. "The aliens expect us to either surrender or try to fight them," she explained to her officers. "They don't expect us to choose option 3. Option 3 was the unofficial name for Protocol Omega. It had never been discussed before the invasion because it seemed too extreme. But now, with alien ships threatening every major city, the impossible had become necessary. In Beijing, Dr. Lai Wei worked with his team to modify the safety protocols of their fusion reactors. "The aliens think they know humans," he said while typing commands into his computer. "They think they understand what we will do. But they have never met a species like us before." The work continued around the clock. In Sydney, Tokyo, New York, and dozens of other locations, fusion plants were slowly transformed. Each one needed to be perfect. There would be no second chances. 20 days after the ultimatum, UN Secretary General Maria Santos visited one of the facilities. She watched as scientists made final adjustments to their deadly creation. "Are we sure about this?" she asked Dr. Rodriguez, who had been promoted to lead the global project. "The aliens gave us 2 choices, surrender or die," Emily replied, checking readings on her tablet. "We're giving ourselves a 3rd choice. If we have to die, we'll do it on our terms, and we'll take them with us." In space, the alien ships continued their patient wait. Their sensors recorded everything happening on Earth's surface, but they couldn't see what was happening underground. They noticed the busy military, the calm populations, the functioning cities. Everything looked like a civilization preparing to surrender. They had no idea they were watching humanity prepare the biggest surprise in galactic history. The humans had a saying that would soon become famous across the stars: "If we burn, you burn with us." Supreme Overlord Vexthor stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring down at the blue planet below. His tentacles twitched with irritation as he reviewed the latest reports from his psychology team. "This makes no sense," he growled to his advisors. "Where is the panic? Where are the riots? Every other species we've encountered showed signs of breaking by now." On his screens, he watched humans going about their daily lives. In Paris, people still sat at cafes. In Tokyo, trains ran on schedule. In New York, people still jogged in Central Park, right under the shadow of his ships. His chief psychologist, Dr. Zix, appeared nervous. "Sir, we've been studying their entertainment media. These humans have many stories about alien invasions. Perhaps they are used to the idea." Vexthor's skin changed color with anger. "Impossible. No species can be used to the might of the Empire." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Pentagon, General Jessica Martinez received the latest intelligence reports. The aliens' confusion was exactly what they had hoped for. "Keep feeding them normal activity footage," she ordered her team. "Let them think we're in denial." Across the world, Protocol Omega reached its final stages. In each hidden facility, scientists made their last adjustments. The converted fusion plants were ready. They only needed the signal. On the alien command ship, another analyst approached Vexthor. Sir, we've detected increased military movement, but it's strange. They're not preparing defenses. They're just moving equipment between bases. Perhaps they've accepted their fate, suggested Admiral Crix, Vexthor's second-in-command. Their calm might be resignation. In London's underground bunker, Prime Minister Wright met with her scientific advisors. Dr. James Wilson, head of Britain's fusion program, showed her the final calculations. Once we start, he explained, there's no stopping it. Each reactor will trigger the next, like a chain of falling dominoes. How many of their ships will we take with us? She asked, her voice steady. Based on their current positions, at least 60% of their fleet. Dr. Wilson managed a grim smile. They're clustering too close to our cities. They think it makes them more intimidating. It will make them easier to destroy. Back on the command ship, Vexthor received a message from the Empire's Central Command. They wanted to know why Earth hadn't surrendered yet. No planet had ever taken this long to make the obvious choice. Perhaps we should demonstrate our power again, suggested Admiral Crix. A small show of force. No, Vexthor decided, his tentacles curling thoughtfully. Let them take the full 30 days. Their behavior suggests they're accepting their place in the Empire. They're just taking time to come to terms with it. How wrong he was. In underground facilities around the world, final preparations were complete. Dr. Rodriguez in Nevada sent the last confirmation code to UN headquarters. We're ready, she reported. All sites are green. The UN Secretary General looked at the display showing all conversion sites worldwide. 25 blinking green lights represented 25 future stars. May whatever gods exist forgive us, she whispered. Above them all, the Empire's ships continued their patient watch, their crews growing more confused by the hour. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, and none had acted like this. They had no way of knowing they were about to learn why humans were different. Very, very different. Day 29 arrived. Supreme Overlord Vexthor gave the order to begin landing operations. Massive transport ships descended from the Empire's fleet, heading for major cities around the world. Their sensors showed no meaningful resistance. Everything was going according to plan. Until Sydney. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stood in the Australian facility's control room, her hand hovering over the activation switch. On her screens, she could see 3 Empire ships descending toward her city. Prime Minister Cooper's voice came through her headset. Sydney, you have permission to light the match. For Earth, she whispered, and pressed the button. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in the heart of Sydney, light began to shine from underground. It started as a soft glow, but quickly grew brighter than the sun. The Empire's ships tried to raise their shields, but they were too late. From his command ship, Vexthor watched in horror as Sydney transformed into a miniature star. The blast vaporized his transport ships instantly. The energy release was beyond anything his sensors could measure. Impossible, he screamed, his tentacles thrashing wildly. They couldn't have this technology. They're barely space-capable. In the UN emergency bunker, they watched the feeds from Sydney. Where the city had been, a small star now burned in the Earth's crust. The heat was already changing weather patterns across Australia. Sydney is confirmed, General Martinez announced. 3 enemy capital ships destroyed. Protocol Omega is working exactly as planned. Vexthor scrambled to understand what was happening. He ordered all ships to raise shields and pull back to higher orbit. But before his fleet could react, another light began to shine, this time in Moscow. Dr. Petrov looked at his team one last time. For Russia, for Earth. He activated their device. Moscow's transformation was even more spectacular than Sydney's. The blast caught 5 Empire ships in its initial expansion. Admiral Crix rushed onto the command bridge. Sir, our sensors indicate they're somehow creating artificial stellar reactions, but the energy readings, they're sacrificing their own cities to generate these effects. Vexthor's skin turned pale with shock. In all the Empire's history of conquest, No species had ever done anything like this. His ships were designed to withstand normal weapons, but these weren't weapons. They were newborn stars. In Paris, Dr. Marie Laurent watched the Empire ships trying to flee from her city. "They still don't understand," she said to her team. "They thought we would choose slavery over death. They were wrong." She pressed her button. Paris bloomed into light. On the command ship, Vexthor's crew was panicking. "Sir, we're detecting power buildups in every major human city. They're all going to evacuate," Vexthor ordered. "Get all ships out of the atmosphere." But even as he gave the order, Beijing transformed into a burning star, taking 4 more Empire ships with it. In New York's underground facility, Dr. Rodriguez watched the data feeds. Sydney, Moscow, Paris, and Beijing were now artificial stars. The Empire's fleet was in chaos, losing ships with each new detonation. "They finally understand," she said, watching the alien ships frantically trying to escape Earth's atmosphere. "We're not surrendering. We're not fighting. We're doing something they never imagined possible." Above the burning Earth, the Empire's mighty fleet broke formation for the first time in its history. They had come expecting either submission or a futile resistance. Instead, they watched in terror as humanity turned their own cities into weapons that defied the laws of physics as the Empire knew them. Earth's atmosphere was on fire. Where Sydney, Moscow, Paris, and Beijing had stood, artificial stars now burned with impossible brightness. But humanity wasn't finished. Not even close. In London's underground facility, Dr. James Wilson watched the temperature gauges climbing. "The planet's magnetic field is destabilizing," he reported to Prime Minister Wright. "Perfect, just as we planned." "Then it's our turn," she replied, her voice steady. "Light up London." The process had become familiar now. First came the glow, then the blast of unimaginable light. London transformed into the 5th artificial star, its energy reaching up to destroy 3 more Empire ships that hadn't retreated fast enough. On his command ship, now pulled back to a safer distance, Supreme Overlord Vexthor watched in helpless rage. "How many cities can they possibly sacrifice?" he demanded. His science officer, trembling, checked the readings. "Sir, we're detecting similar power buildups in Tokyo, New York, Los Angeles, Berlin, Rome." He paused, his voice shaking. "Everywhere, sir. They're going to burn everything." Down on Earth, humanity's greatest act of defiance continued. Tokyo went next, its transformation lighting up the Pacific Ocean. The heat was so intense it created instant hurricanes. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, watching from a backup facility in Osaka, allowed herself a small smile. "The Empire thought we would value survival above all else," she said to her team. "They didn't understand that humans would rather burn free than live as slaves." In New York, the time had come. Dr. Rodriguez looked at her team one last time. "It's been an honor," she said, and pressed the activation switch. Manhattan's bedrock cracked open as the artificial star formed, reaching up into space with tendrils of plasma. The Empire's retreat became chaotic. Ships collided with each other as they tried to escape Earth's atmosphere, now wildly unstable from the multiple stellar events. Pieces of their mighty fleet fell burning through the sky. "Sir," Admiral Crix shouted to Vexthor, "the humans, they're sending us a message." On every Empire ship's communication system, the same words appeared. "You thought you understood sacrifice. You thought you knew what species would do to survive. You were wrong. Remember Earth." Los Angeles ignited next, followed almost immediately by Berlin. The chain reaction was accelerating. Each new star disrupted the planet's core more than the last. Earth itself was beginning to break apart. In his ship's medical bay, Dr. Zix, the Empire's chief psychologist, laughed hysterically. "We studied them for years," he told no one in particular. "We watched their wars, their conflicts, their divisions. We thought they would turn on each other when threatened. Instead, they united to commit the greatest act of mutual sacrifice in galactic history. Rome's transformation was particularly spectacular. The artificial star formed directly under St. Peter's Basilica, sending a column of plasma straight up through the atmosphere. It caught two retreating Empire ships, adding their destruction to the growing chaos. From a small backup facility in Antarctica, UN Secretary-General Maria Santos watched the final phase begin. Across what remained of Earth, the last cities prepared for activation. The planet's surface was already unrecognizable, covered in massive storms created by the heat of multiple artificial stars. "They came to break us," she said, watching the Empire's fleet scatter in panic. "Instead, we showed them something they had never seen before, a species willing to burn its own world to deny them victory." The final phase of Protocol Omega was about to begin. Earth's surface was already unrecognizable, with 12 artificial stars burning where major cities had once stood. The planet's atmosphere had become a swirling mass of plasma and storm clouds. In the Antarctic command bunker, the last human leaders gathered. They had saved this moment for the end. Dr. Rodriguez, who had escaped New York's transformation via a high-speed underground train, checked the final calculations on her tablet. "All remaining cities are synchronized," she announced. "Once we start, we'll have exactly 3 minutes before total planetary collapse." UN Secretary-General Santos looked at the faces around her. Representatives from every surviving nation stood ready at their control stations. "Send our final message," she ordered. Across space, every Empire ship received the broadcast. It wasn't just words this time, it was images. Earth's history flashed across their screens. The pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, the Eiffel Tower, children playing in parks, scientists in laboratories, artists creating masterpieces. Then came the second part of the message. "You demanded our submission. Instead, we give you our defiance. We are humanity. We lived free and will die free. Watch carefully, Empire." This is how humans say goodbye. On his command ship, Supreme Overlord Vexthor could only stare as his dream of easy conquest turned into a nightmare. "Stop them," he screamed, though he knew it was pointless. "Launch everything we have." But it was too late. Around what remained of Earth, 30 more cities activated their devices simultaneously. The effect was beyond anything the Empire's sensors could measure. Each new artificial star linked with the others, creating a web of plasma that encircled the planet. Dr. Rodriguez watched the final readings. "Chain reaction achieving critical mass," she reported calmly. "Planetary core destabilization in 3, 2, 1. Earth's crust cracked open like an egg. Massive plates of land rose and fell as the artificial star's energy reached the planet's core. The oceans boiled away in seconds. What had once been the cradle of human civilization began to tear itself apart. In space, the Empire's fleet retreated to a safe distance. They couldn't look away. No species in galactic history had ever done anything like this. Their sensors recorded everything, transmitting the footage across the galaxy. "Sir," Admiral Crix reported to Vexthor, his voice shaking, "we're detecting similar power signatures from the human colonies on Mars and Venus. They're going to destroy those too." Indeed, just as Earth entered its final moments, lights began to shine on Mars. The human colonies there had waited for this signal. They too would leave nothing for the Empire. The Antarctic bunker's walls began to melt. Dr. Rodriguez looked at her final readings with professional interest. "The reaction is spreading faster than we calculated," she noted. "The Empire will lose even more ships than we hoped." Secretary-General Santos stood straight and proud. "Send our very last transmission," she ordered. As Earth's final moments approached, one last message went out to the stars. "Remember this, Empire. Remember what happened when you thought you could enslave humanity. Remember Earth." Then it happened. Earth's core went critical. The planet exploded with the force of 1,000 suns, taking a quarter of the Empire's fleet with it. The blast was so bright it was visible across the galaxy. Where Earth had been, a new cosmic phenomenon began to form, a monument to humanity's ultimate act of defiance. 50 years after Earth's destruction, a young Xerxian student named Kral stood before the massive window of an observation station. Where Earth had once been, a spectacular phenomenon now lit up space. Scientists called it the human pyre, a swirling mass of stellar energy that burned with an eternal fire. "Tell me again about the humans," Kral asked his grandfather, former Admiral Crix. The old alien's tentacles twitched at the request, but he could never refuse to tell this story. "I was there," Crix began, his voice soft. "I watched a species choose total destruction over submission. We thought we were so powerful, so wise. We were fools." The Empire had changed dramatically since that day. The great fleet that once terrorized the galaxy was now reduced to defensive patrols. No planet had received an ultimatum in 50 years. In a nearby system, a Centaurian diplomat addressed the Galactic Council. "The humans gave us something precious," she said, her crystalline form reflecting the light. "They showed us that true strength isn't about superior weapons or vast fleets. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for freedom." Supreme Overlord Vexthor had not survived the Empire's change. After Earth's destruction, the Empire's citizens had demanded answers. How had their leaders so completely misunderstood humanity? The investigations led to massive reforms. At the galaxy's most prestigious university, Professor Zix, the former Empire psychologist, now taught a required course called The Human Legacy. Today's lecture was about Earth's final message. Their last words were, "Remember Earth," he told his students, "and we have remembered." Every species in the galaxy now has their own version of Protocol Omega. The Empire's ultimatum strategy, which worked for 10,000 years, became useless in a single day. Back at the observation station, Kral watched a group of Andromedans approach the viewing window. They wore the traditional black clothes of pilgrims. Every day, members of different species came to witness the human pyre. The humans never saw their victory, Crix told his grandson. "They died thinking they had only denied us our conquest. They couldn't know they had changed the entire galaxy forever." In distant parts of space, other empires and kingdoms had learned the lesson too. Slavery had almost disappeared from the galaxy. The threat of planetary destruction no longer worked when every world was ready to trigger their own Protocol Omega. Near the human pyre, automated probes continued their endless study of the phenomenon. The humans' final act had created something that defied the laws of physics. The energy should have dissipated years ago, but it kept burning, eternal and bright. "Some say," Crix whispered to his grandson, "that on very quiet days, the monitoring stations pick up signals from the pyre. Numbers and patterns that seem almost like music, as if the humans found a way to keep singing even after they were gone." A group of young Empire citizens joined them at the window. They wore the silver badges of the Human Studies Academy. 50 years ago, their ancestors had tried to conquer Earth. Now their children dedicated their lives to understanding the species that had changed everything. "Remember, Kral," Crix said, touching his grandson's shoulder with a tentacle. "The humans didn't just die. They became immortal. Every free species in the galaxy lives in the light of their sacrifice. They taught us all that freedom isn't just worth dying for, it's worth burning for." The human pyre continued to burn, an eternal flame in the darkness of space, reminding the galaxy forever of the species that chose to burn rather than bow.